Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Slow Burn. My name is Miles Maestro. And today we have a very special episode. I want to talk about the new movie, The Odyssey. I want to talk about my new song that just came out today called Fear. Today's July 17th, so that's when we're recording this. And as today is coming out, it's the first Slow Burn we've ever recorded on the day that it's coming out. And I wanted to do that. You can hear a little bit of wind. We've had storms in and out all week, so that's probably going to get a bit of wind today. Hopefully it's not too bad. Once it subsides, you'll be able to hear me better. But I wanted to wait so that we could talk about this movie, The Odyssey. It is based on Homer's epic, The Odyssey. And it's Christopher Nolan's newest addition to his, I have to say, his timeless lineup. There's not many movies, if any movies, he's made that I've not been a fan of. But unless you've been living under a rock, which if you're watching this, it's very well possible. A lot of us just like staying as disconnected as possible, which I completely understand. In the off chance you've heard the controversy surrounding this movie, I didn't know what to expect. The movie, let's talk about it. Let me give you my official review of The Odyssey. It was a good movie. It was. It was very entertaining. It was the first time getting to see that epic on screen, which is already just going to elevate that to new heights. It was shot completely in IMAX. It's, to my understanding, one of the first to do so. He had to create his own technology for that to happen, because IMAX cameras are very loud, so he had to have basically a giant box to cover the camera so that the actors could record it and they could still pick up audio without the audio of the camera itself interfering. So there was a lot of new, tech that went into this movie. It looks fantastic. The composition, the color grade, it just feels like a movie. I feel like there's a lot of movies that have come out recently that don't feel like movies. The cameras are so damn good that it feels too real. Maybe hyper real, if you will. But no, this movie feels like a movie, and I really enjoy that. The acting was really good on Matt Damon, really good on Robert Pattinson, Anne Hathaway. Hadn't seen her in a big movie recently, but her, Matt Damon, Robert Pattinson, they've all worked with Christopher Nolan before, so the casting was of no surprise to me. But there were some things I did not like, and I want to talk about them. You've heard about the controversy. A lot of people thought that Elliot Page, formerly Ellen Page, if you've ever seen Juno or the X-Men, yes, Ellen Page, who every guy who's my age, if they were honest, at one point had a crush on this woman, now claims to be a man. And Elliot Page is cast in this film. The rumors were that Elliot was cast as Achilles. Cast as Achilles. And that just wasn't true. It was cast as a character named Sinon. Elliot was cast as a character named Sinon. And, man, the subtleties of Hollywood is masterful. Now, on the surface, it doesn't seem like it should be something that is a problem. And honestly, on the surface, it's not a problem. It's Hollywood. I'm sure that there are thousands, or at least hundreds of transgender characters or actors who played characters that we don't even know about. There are secret transgenders, if you will. But then there are some who are more outspoken about their journey, and Elliot falls more into that category. Now, again, on the surface, it's not a bad thing to have an actor who's a transgender cast in a film. It's just not. I don't think it deserves the outrage it's got. Hollywood has been weird and, what's the word? Against the order of God since its conception. It has. It was created to be a new religion. To worship the stars. I recommend you read the book Hollywood Babylon. It's very hard to find. Man, I cannot remember. Robert Anger, I believe, is the author. I was about to say I can't remember, but then I remember. I believe it's Robert Anger who wrote Hollywood Babylon. And he dives into the history of Hollywood, all the controversy surrounding early Hollywood, even before silent films and stuff like that. It was created to be a religion of star worship. And when they couldn't get you to worship the stars in the sky, they wanted you to worship the stars in the screen. And there has been a lot of bad stuff going on in Hollywood since it started. And you can tell. Anyone who's worked out there will be able to tell you, me included. Anyone who's been out there for extended periods of time would probably tell you if they were honest enough or aware enough that you can feel it. It's a dark energy that's out there. Just in Los Angeles, and I would argue most of California. I wouldn't say like you go to Yosemite or even some parts of San Diego, I don't really feel that same crippling hold. But in a lot of parts of California, the big cities, I'd say, you can feel the dark energy, and I would say LA, it is absolutely the strongest. So, why do I tell you all of that? Because this is nothing new for Hollywood. I don't think, again, it deserves the outrage it's got. Elliot, I will say, is a fine actor and played the role well. Now, here's what I did not like, and here's why I say Hollywood is so masterfully subtle. Everyone was outraged because they thought it was going to be Achilles. They thought Elliot was going to be Achilles. And when it came down to it, Elliot was not Achilles. It was a character called Sinon. And Sinon is described in the movie as one of the most honorable men. Boom. Right there. In the movie, Sinon represents manhood and honor and sacrifice for one's friends, sacrifice for one's family and companions in war. Again, on the surface, that is a great message, but it's dangerous. I know I'm stepping into some dangerous waters here, but I really don't care. And I'll get into why after this as well, but this has to be said. It is dangerous. Because, it was such a good movie. I want to be able to use that movie. Like my dad introduced me to Gladiator. It was my first rated R movie. I was so excited to watch Gladiator. It was so good. And this movie is of that quality to be introduced to my future son, Lord willing, as like a great war movie that just gets you hyped. But when you have things like that, unfortunately, you have to put a whole new set of lie detectors on. I stole the lie detector thing from Josh Howerton. He's the pastor of Lake Point Church in Rockwall, and he has a podcast called Live Free. And they talk about how when he watches movies with his children, that he has to watch movies with them and tell them to put their lie detectors on, and then let's talk about it. So unfortunately, this movie's going to open up the lie detector conversation for a lot of people, which, let's be real, it's a rated R movie. There's war, there's cursing, there's all types of stuff that are different types of sin that already require a conversation, but this one is just a little bit more sensitive, if you will. It needs to be talked about with more care. So, that part of the movie, I would say, is disappointing. But it does not take away from the movie. Honestly, it's one of those things, I didn't get mad when I saw it. It genuinely broke my heart. Because it's so blatantly in defiance of the order of God that it's sad. It's genuinely just heartbreaking. How there are people in this world who feel like a movie cannot be what it is without some bit of that being interjected into it. I don't like movies that are sexual and freak shows and have a lot of that crap in it. It makes it very uncomfortable to watch. And so this movie lacks all of that. It was awesome. There was not one single scene that if I was watching it at home I would have skipped. But with this in it, it just, it opens up a whole new avenue of conversation in the future. And it's just sad to me that there's people out there who feel like it needs to be in there. So, that's my only complaint. The movie itself, again, don't get me wrong, the movie itself is great. I would see it again. I'm hesitant to see it again in theaters only because of this. I don't want to support stuff that pushes this mantra. So that's another element of it that just, it breaks my heart because I want to like it. I want to be able to watch. I'm the type of guy who will go see a movie 5, 6, 7, 8 times in theaters because I love them. And I love the movie theater. But it's this one's hard to wrestle with. And it's just disappointing. The casting itself surprised me. There's a lot of choices made with the casting that just didn't make sense to me. A lot of it made sense watching the movie when I saw it. I was like, okay. But I wanted to talk about this. I know it's controversial. I know I could face these episodes aren't really that big now or yet. If Lord willing, a lot of people start watching these, I could, wade into the fire with this one. But if they're so confident in speaking up for what they believe, I want to be confident in speaking up for what I believe, and I believe that this is wrong. I don't believe that it's worse than any other sin, but I believe it's a little bit more strange from a human comparison, since it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't just defy the order of gender or the order of God's creation. It also defines one of the intangible orders like logic. Truly, it does. And I feel like once we start denying logic, now we're really getting into some uncharted territory. Now, there's nothing new under the sun, so again, this has been going on just a little bit more in your face now. I was fearful to talk about this, but that brings me to the next thing I wanted to talk about. My new song, Fear. That's what it's called. And it's about this exact thing. It's about, will my beliefs be held by the masses? No. Will I probably be attacked and insulted for what I believe? Yeah. Will it get to a point where I could have my life taken or family's life taken for these types of beliefs? Absolutely. It's heartbreaking. But we're stepping into that time. It's being slowly introduced. And that's why I say subtly or masterfully subtle. Where do you think Hollywood gets it from? The powers that be that run the world also are the powers overseeing what goes out to the masses. If you think the government is not involved in what our television broadcasts, you're sorely mistaken. And it's even more than the government. It's the shadows within the government. Now, a lot of you may be like, oh, here we go. Here we go. We're stepping into conspiracy land. No, but let's talk about worldviews for a second. Because that's what I feel has truly been hijacked. Is worldviews. Before I was a Christian, I thought Christianity was vanilla, weak, didn't make sense. And why would I think that? Because that's the way it's been showcased. It's very surface level. But when you really dive into scripture, it's not that at all. When you really dive into history, it's not that at all. It's only the selected parts of history we've been taught in schools that make it seem that way. And why is that? Why would they do that? Well, last episode we read my essay on the hands of time. And we talked a lot about the powers that be, the kings and the queens controlling the pawns and instating the rooks and the knights and the bishops into places of power so that the narrative is being controlled on a mass scale. That has been going on since the dawn of time, and if you don't think that that's true, unfortunately, you're just naive. Or living in an ignorance is bliss type of sense, which I understand. That in itself is a defense mechanism. I cannot knock you for it. But it is worth digging under the surface a bit to ask the question, what is reality? And what is possible under the reality we have today? Why would the Bible talk about sorcery and witchcraft if it wasn't real? Why would the Bible talk about dragons if they weren't real? Why does the Bible talk about a bunch of stuff that people nowadays, even Bible-believing Christians, would be like, no, that's fake. They have to read into the scripture and say, oh, well, when they say this, now it's metaphor, even though the previous 3 verses and the previous 3, the next 3 chapters, none of it's metaphor. It's history. And I think we should start being a little more mindful of that, of what it is we're reading. I believe the earth was created in 7 real days. Anytime that the Bible describes as evening came, then morning came, and that was the first day, that means 1 real day in the original Hebrew. We could get into Enoch and all the apocryphal texts. I don't want to do that. I don't know how reliable those texts are. From my research on the earliest transcripts or manuscripts we have of that, they're just not written by the people they say they're written by. But I do think that they were held to a standard of maybe not spoken by God, but still could be history. In the same way, I think Homer's epic has a lot of historical grounds to it. Now, how could you think that? There's giants and gods and blah, 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 blah. I thought you were a Christian. Let's dive into this a bit. I think Poseidon, Zeus, Athena, I think they were real beings. Most likely demons with extraordinary powers. Most likely demons. I don't know if they were able to manifest into human form. Maybe they were. But I do think Apollos, all these, the sun god and blah, 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 all these, I think, were real beings. Real spiritual beings, at least, if not manifested physical beings. And I think they were demons. Little g gods. And I think that the offspring of the little g gods, of these fallen angels and humans, procreated and created things called giants. The Nephilim. Or the Anaki. It's found in Exodus and... No, it's not. It might be Leviticus, I think, actually. It's either the end of Exodus or Leviticus. And then again in Numbers and Joshua. Anyway. I believe that they were real. I believe that their offspring were giants. And even in Homer's epic, Poseidon's son is a giant cyclops, which I could see. I mean, look what happens when you have incest. Or, look at it. There's tons of, what is it called? My mind's blanking on the word right now. Genetic malfunctions, mutations, that's the word I was looking for. Genetic mutations and stuff that end up having some of these babies having deformities and health issues and the whole nine. I would think that cross-species procreation with humans and demons is going to lead to some dangerous mutations. I think them being giants, cyclops, I would not put it past that. And I think that there's biblical grounds for that. When you're looking at the world as you should look at the world, and that this stuff is very real. And they put it in movies and books and children's shows so that whenever someone brings up, oh no, I think that's real, they can be like, no, you just got that from a movie or a book or a children's show. And it's easily dismissed. I mean, that's the whole art of predictive programming. And when you have a worldview that has a little bit more, I would say, room for that type of stuff, everything starts to make more sense. Everything. The Bible makes more sense than ever. And holds of even more importance. Because the creator of all those things is also the one who says, you are important and you are special. And I died for you. That's the gospel. You know, a lot of people get so enamored with Nephilim and Genesis 6 and the book of Enoch and all this stuff and just wanting to focus on that to where they're not focusing on the gospel. But when you take into account all of that, the gospel becomes 10 times more real because we get so caught up on, oh, giants are so cool, if, fallen angels have like superpowers and stuff like that, that's so cool, and blah, blah, blah. We start idolizing this stuff because we think it's so cool, but when you really start thinking about it, no. God says you are more important than those things. I don't feel more important. Of course you don't. the spiritual beings that we find so cool and are still around. I believe after the flood, that if they were physically manifested, they were no more. They had to learn to operate from the spiritual realm, and maybe they can manifest within people. Obviously, if that's true with the way Satan entered into Judas. So these entities can enter into people and get them to do their bidding and their will. But even with that power, God says we as humanity are the most important. We as the human race are his most precious creation. And that has power. He didn't die for them, he died for us. And that's beautiful. And that's why when we look at stuff like this Elliot Page situation, it breaks my heart. Because how unimportant as a woman do you have to feel like you have to be a man to be important. You have to be a man to be loved. You have to be a man to feel good. Which the feelings part of that is just a conversation for a whole another day. I have an episode about thoughts and feelings. I believe it's episode 2 of Slow Burn. You can go check it out if that's something you want to hear more about. But this is a real issue. And as Christians, we cannot be condemning these people. We need to be praying for them. This shouldn't anger us. It should break our hearts, because it breaks God's heart, I assure you. We need to be arming the next generation with worldviews that account for all this stuff, because I guarantee the reason they're not being taught worldviews that account for this stuff is because they want you to think reality is as boring as it is, and you need to be locked in on a screen and on a device and entering into a different world of some sort, because this world is just so mundane and so boring and so dull, and it's not. It's just not. And there's so much more I could say about this, but I'm always fearful to bring up even that that's my worldview. But not today. And not anymore. The main lyric of my new song, Fear, is, I must face my fear. Or fight. Fear or fight. It's all we can do. You can be fearful and cower and hide from what you believe. Or you can fight for what you believe and stand up. So, I have said a lot, and I'm going to leave it just about there. Again, I encourage people to see the Odyssey. I don't necessarily encourage you to go see it in theaters. But if you're a theater person and a movie person, take everything we just talked about into consideration and go see it on the biggest screen possible. It's cool. It's cool. And it looks like a movie. You can go check out Fear. I'll put the link below so you can go stream that song or purchase the song if you still purchase songs on iTunes. But we'll get all that rolling, and I will see you guys next week on Slow Burn.